Hi, welcome to the Burgess Show. I'm Sherri Hansen. Thanks for joining us today. I'm with Judy Baer, and Judy Baer is your pen name. We talked about that a little bit, Judy. Judy's an author who is just nestled in our little Burgess community, and I just was so intrigued by the fact that I read her books, and here she is right in our area. So I thought that you too would like to hear a little bit more about your books and about you, Judy. Okay. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. Nice to be here.
Okay, you said Judy Baer is your pen name. Give us the history on that.
Well, I started writing. Writing is the only job I've had in my adult life.
Wonderful. How great that would be.
And so I started out as Judy Baer. And that's, of course, then my pen name. My married name is Dino.
Okay. And you and your husband live here in the Burgess area?
We do. We live in the home of Lyle Tweeton on Spirit Lake.
Beautiful Spirit Lake, yes. Wonderful.
And Tom runs NORAM, which is a company in Detroit Lakes.
Okay.
And we live out here.
Well, what brought you to the Burgess area? I mean, other than it just being a beautiful place to be, right?
Well, I guess it was just luck. Tom was moving up to that job, and he said, well, if I'm going to live here, I'm going to live somewhere on a lake. So
perfect.
And apparently it was meant to be. We met Lyle Tweeton and his wife, and we rented their home.
Their home was available,
yes,
and the rest is just history, right? How long have you been here, Judy?
It's going on 3 years, actually.
3 years. Yeah. Well, I had a Lene Salveson at the grocery store. It was always telling me, you know, we have an author in our community. You know, we have Ernie Shanalek, who is claimed to fame and writes books from the area and that. But when I started reading your books, and Judy, you have such a sense of rural community. And you get it. You get what small towns are about. Now, did you grow up in a small town?
I did. I grew up in a town of, Leeds, North Dakota, which is, what, 500 or so, I think. And I grew up on a farm, very rural community. And I also grew up in a little country church.
Okay.
And a 2 or 3 point parish, you know. So I very much understand, and I like rural communities. So one of my dreams was actually to write a book about a rural community like that, because I just love people. They're so diverse and so interesting, and you get to know them very well in smaller places.
Well, and in your books, you bring it out. I mean, you create a character, and it's just like, oh, I can, you know, oh, I know that person, and you can almost relate it to somebody in your own small town.
You know, it's interesting because I hear that all the time from dozens of people in their own small town.
Okay.
And so I'm glad I hit the mark.
You did, yes.
I'm very careful not to use anybody I know. I wouldn't, you know,
I imagine that
they're all fictional. But in small communities, there are just lots of interesting personalities. Okay,
so we've talked about your books, but maybe everybody wants to know, what kind of books do you write, Judy?
Right now I write women's fiction primarily. Some of my latest books have been for guideposts. I also write an inspirational romance for Love Inspired is the name of the line, and that's actually published by Harlequin.
Okay.
Last year I had a devotional come out, Mornings with Jesus, and I did that with 6 other authors. So it's
quite diverse range.
Yes.
Yeah. How many books have you written?
Well, actually, I've written 80.
Wow.
Early in my career, I wrote kids' books, and I wrote 45 books for young adults. And so I always preface that 80. They were a little shorter. They were only about 35,000 words. So, you know, they weren't the bigger books that I normally do now.
Sure. And so what do you have in the works right now, Judy?
Well, I just finished galleys on one book that will come out in April. It's the sequel to my first book, An Unlikely Blessing, that was the rural community book. And this is Surprising Grace is the name of the next book. And so that will come out in April.
That sequel will come out in April.
The sequel will come out in April.
Blessing.
And then in the fall, I have a book coming out called The Bachelor Boss.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
Well, it's lighter, and all my books are fairly light, though. I like humor, and I like uplifting books.
What I have found about your books is, yes, what you said is they're so uplifting. The Unlikely Blessing was actually the first book that that I read that I actually was like, this is Burgess. And so I really recommend anybody from Burgess getting Unlikely Blessing, because, and then it's so exciting to hear that you're going to be having a sequel to that too, because you can, I mean, it's the 2-point parish, it's the different diverse people, and and it just made it really easy to read and interesting.
Good, good. And I also almost failed to mention that my older books, I have 2 series I wrote for kids, young adults, and they will be coming out in Kindle during 2012 sometime. So
that's good to know,
people will be able to order them that way.
All right, so that brings up a good question. And so I have been able to get your books online, but how else are we able to get your books?
They're in the stores when they're released.
I liked what you said. What was that?
I always say a book has a shelf life of a banana. Not all of them, but the majority of books are, once they're sold through, they don't necessarily reorder because there's a flood of new books coming in. So then you have to rely on ordering somewhere. They're in Barnes & Noble. The Bachelor Boss will be in Barnes & Noble and Target, for example. An Unlikely Blessing and Surprising Grace will be in Christian bookstores and also Barnes & Noble. And I always tell people, if all else fails, go online.
You just need to go online and put in your name, and then it just immediately brings up
just Google Judy Baer, but it's spelled B-A-E-R, not like the animal.
Right, and that's one of the places I found them too, was on CBD. There's a Christian book distributor, and you have and there's a lot of the books on there too, and so. So
and Amazon is kind of a giant.
Sure, that's a giant there. And so you've got those coming up, and you told me a little bit of what you've got going there. But what are your favorite types of books to read, or to write? Excuse me.
To write or to read?
Let's do to read. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
My favorite types are actually mysteries.
They are. Okay.
Yep, and thrillers.
Okay.
And I don't read as much as I would like to.
No.
Because I read all the time, but research or my own things, but I listen to books on tape constantly. And because I drive back and forth between here and the cities fairly regularly.
And so that's a good way to do that then.
I finish a lot of books that way.
So you have a book here called The Cinderella List, and I know this is a reprint and a large print, but just for people to understand, how long does it take you to research and write a book like that?
I like to give myself 6 months. I would prefer 9, but I haven't really given myself that luxury at this point because it is my only employment. So I have to keep working.
Keep going with them.
And the longer ones, I've worked on books 2 and 3 years.
Sure.
So I'm not necessarily just doing that one book.
And that brings another question up, is your characters. Where do you get your material from? Do you make it up, or do you?
I really do make it up. I'm a watcher of people, I suppose you'd say. But I always compare a writer to a dry sponge. You just walk out and you just soak up everything that's
going on,
comes your way, and then you can squeeze a little of it out on paper. So, you know, again, I'm careful never to take a whole personality, but I might take somebody's distinctive walk. And
or there might be a curly-headed person coming in one of your next ones.
I'm sure there will be.
Well, Judy, I just so appreciate you joining us today and telling us a little bit about what you've got going. We could go on about it for a lot longer, and I'm just intrigued with writing, and so just being in our small Burgess community, we welcome you, and hopefully you'll take time to go out and look for Judy Baer online, or check out those Barnes & Noble and Target stores.
Very good.
All right,
Thank you,
Judy.
Thanks so much.
You have a good day in Burgess.